The lantern's curse. Every Halloween, our small town holds a lantern festival by the old woods. There's a legend about the festival, one that locals don't like to talk about. They say that if you walk the lantern path alone and spot a dimly lit, faded lantern at the end, you must turn back before reaching it. If you don't, it's said to summon the spirit of the lantern keeper. Last Halloween, my friend Chris dared me to walk the path alone. "It's just a bunch of old lanterns," he laughed. But there was a tension in his eyes that made me pause. Still, I brushed it off, took a deep breath, and started down the path. As I walked, the light from each lantern cast long shadows that seemed to stretch toward me. The woods were silent, except for the crunch of leaves under my feet and the occasional hoot of an owl. Each step felt heavier than the last, and a cold wind brushed against my neck, as though something was watching me. I tried to stay calm, keeping my eyes forward. Then, about halfway down the path, I spotted a faded lantern, flickering weakly, as if it could go out at any moment. Its glow was different, almost sickly, casting an eerie greenish light. A shiver ran down my spine, and I remembered the legend. But something about that light. It pulled me forward, beckoning me to come closer. I don't know what came over me, but I kept walking, unable to stop. With every step, the lantern grew brighter, illuminating something else, a shadowy figure standing just beside it. The figure wore a tattered cloak, hood drawn low over its face, and its bony hands clutched the lantern tightly. As I neared, the figure slowly raised its head, revealing hollow, empty eyes. "Turn back," it whispered, in a voice that sounded like the rustle of dead leaves. I froze, heart pounding, but my feet wouldn't move. The lantern keeper tilted its head, studying me with those empty eyes, and a thin, skeletal finger extended, pointing right at me. Then, with a soft creak, it opened its mouth, stretching wider and wider until it seemed to be grinning, though there was nothing human about it. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, snapping me out of the trance. I looked down, seeing a message from Chris. "Come back now. I just heard something. You're not alone out there." I glanced up, but the lantern keeper was gone, vanished into the shadows. The faded lantern still glowed, though, flickering in a way that almost seemed like laughter. Panicked, I turned and ran, not daring to look back. My footsteps echoed down the path, chased by the faint rustling whispers from the woods. As I burst into the clearing at the edge of the forest, the lanterns behind me flickered and went out, one by one, until there was only darkness. Back at the festival, Chris looked at me, pale and shaken. "Did you see it?" he whispered. I didn't answer. But now, every Halloween, the lantern path appears just outside my house, no matter where I live. And each year, there's a new faded lantern waiting at the end, flickering softly, daring me to come closer.
The mirror in the attic. It was an old house with creaky floors and cobweb corners, but the attic always held the deepest chills. I had avoided it for years, until that fateful night. I finally mustered the courage to go up there, drawn by some unexplainable pull. The air was stale, heavy, almost as if something was watching me. In the center of the attic stood a large, ornate mirror covered in a thick cloth. Its presence felt unnerving, almost alive. My hands trembled as I reached out, gripping the cloth. A chill ran down my spine, but I couldn't stop myself from pulling it off. The cloth dropped to the floor, revealing the mirror's dark glass. But what I saw wasn't my reflection, it was the figure of a woman staring back at me. Her eyes were hollow, deep black pits, and her face twisted into a haunting smile. She lifted a finger, beckoning me closer. I froze, unable to move as her hand reached out, pressing against the glass from the inside, leaving foggy handprints. Suddenly, the air grew colder, and the entire room felt like it was closing in around me. I could hear faint whispers, too quiet to understand. I turned to run, but my reflection in the mirror didn't move. It stared back at me, its eyes widening in horror. Desperate, I tried to look away, but the reflection seemed to speak, though its mouth barely moved, whispering, "Stay with me." My heart raced as I stumbled back, feeling the cold glass pressing against my back. It felt as though the mirror itself had me trapped. The woman in the mirror tilted her head, a look of satisfaction spreading across her face. She reached her hand toward the glass, as if trying to pull me in. Just when I thought I'd be trapped forever, a bright flash of light filled the room. and the woman's face contorted in anger before disappearing. I collapsed on the floor, the mirror now empty. But even now, when I'm alone, I can feel her watching, waiting for me to return.